Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Cold Hard Truth podcast. I'm Jack Smith.
I'm Shrikar Gendran.
I'm Anish Gupta.
And today, guys, here's what we're going to do. What was your best pick, in your opinion, in the NFL draft this year based on, certain criteria about where they got them, the value, the talent, and how much maybe they fell or how much you like the player in general? Just what was your best pick of the NFL draft?
So I was choosing between three guys. I was choosing between Bryan Edwards at number 81 to the Raiders. I was picking between him, Zack Baun, and Patrick Queen. But I looked into all three a lot more, and it was really hard for me to distinguish all three of them from each other. But I'm going with Patrick Queen here. I mean, everything always seems to work out for the Baltimore Ravens, doesn't it? Like, they aren't a team that trades up often, and yet it feels like some of the top players just fall into their lap. And the 2020 draft, it wasn't any different as the Ravens grabbed Patrick Queen at pick number 28.
Yeah, I had some kind of ups and downs with my picks, but there were a lot of good picks throughout the draft, and I think we all can agree that this was a loaded draft class. Like, there were a handful of receivers that could have easily gone in the first round, but unfortunately, right, there were a lot of just stacked receivers throughout this draft class. I mean, whether it goes with any position, really, it was just really good across the board. But I think when it comes to my kind of picks, I was also choosing between some guys that I thought fell into teams' laps at a good fit, and they were a good fit for the team. So I believe the best pick in the draft was Xavier McKinney, the safety out of Alabama, going in the second round, in the fourth pick of the second round to the New York Giants. I had him as a first round talent, and I mean, I frankly I thought the Dolphins were going to take him with their second first round pick or even their third. And when they kind of moved back, I was after they moved back to 30, I was like, okay, if they don't take him at 30 here, I think he's easily going to slip into the second round. And any team that can get their hands on McKinney would love to have him. And obviously the Giants, who were kind of lackluster there at the safety position besides Jabril Peppers, they get a really good guy there. And I was also kind of tossing over between some picks in the first and the third round, because I believe in the first round you can obviously get a steal with those type of prospects. So I did, although this seems kind of biased, I did kind of go with Jedrick Wills at 10 to the Cleveland Browns. I thought that was a very good pickup. I thought he just fell right to them. And it's like, how can you pass up on a guy like that? And one pick in the third round that I thought was really, really good was another offensive tackle, Josh Jones out of Houston, going to Arizona.
Yeah, I would have to agree with that Josh Jones one. Personally, one of the best picks in my opinion, along with Zack Baun, Shrikar to the Saints, and Jerry Jeudy, to be honest, to the Broncos was also a great pick in my opinion, because I just didn't think he'd be there for them, and he fits their offense perfectly. But in the end, I had to go Isaiah Simmons to the Cardinals. So the Cardinals have two of my favorite picks of the entire draft. But I guess I'll get us started on this kind of debate topic a little bit. I think Isaiah Simmons was one of three elite talents in this year's NFL draft class. And to be able to get him at number 8 at a position you really needed, I just can't see that as not the best pick of the entire draft class, because we've mentioned before, he has the ability to be the best player from this class, and being able to nab him at number 8 was a huge steal in my opinion, and the best pick in the NFL draft.
Well, for Patrick Queen, I mean, the Ravens' biggest need was at linebacker. And, Queen was, in my opinion, the best linebacker in the class, minus Isaiah Simmons, because he plays a bunch of positions. I'm talking about pure linebackers. He was my favorite, and I think he was the best pure linebacker in the class. And while he doesn't have a ton of experience, he comes from a linebacker factory in LSU. And he's one of the youngest players in the draft. Let's keep that in mind. And Queen also came with the added value of having played a 4-3 defense in college, which could help his transition into the NFL.
I mean, Patrick Queen's a really good pick. Ravens just they've got a field of 4-leaf clovers. I mean, they're just getting guys left and right that are really insane. And I think that just makes the AFC North that much tougher to kind of like who's going to dethrone them. But I kind of wanted to talk about how McKinney he brings a kind of a different level to this New York Giants defense, obviously coming from Alabama, and a guy in Joe Judge who was the special teams guy in New England. I mean, there's not much identity to this team. And I think this was easily the best pick that Dave Gettleman could have made. I mean, it was really hard to screw up, but I mean, when McKinney falls to you here, you get a hybrid safety. Obviously, he's got the height. He's 6 foot. He's got good speed, good hands. 36 vertical. That's not bad at all. I think him alongside Jabril Peppers, that's a good young safety tandem that can easily be like really good for years to come. I mean, obviously the loss of Landon Collins kind of left some people in question. And I think with the Giants, you've got to start addressing the needs of, you've got to not go flashy, address needs that will slowly build this team up. Because I mean, ever since 2016, right, this team has kind of been like hard-shelled old guys while also having, you know, flashy talent. I mean, it's really hard to differentiate where they're going, but I think now they're kind of starting to solidify a direction. They're kind of moving on from old guys like Nate Solder. Kind of moved on from Landon Collins. While he wasn't old, he just didn't fit their scheme. They're kind of going a lot younger, and I think McKinney was probably the best pick for them to do that.
So I want to bring up a couple of things talking about the McKinney pick. Is first of all, do you think he's better than Winfield?
That's I mean, I think between, like, see, I was also tempted with Delpit, Winfield, and McKinney. The thing is, so for example, with the Browns, right? When they took Delpit, initially I was like, okay, why did you pass up on Winfield? I thought for sure he was going to go there. But the thing is, like, Delpit's best season was with Greedy Williams, right? So now he has that in Cleveland. And don't forget, you have Denzel Ward right alongside with them. Obviously, he's finally healthy now. So I think it really just depended on where the scheme fit was. I just think Winfield is a little bit too small to play with Jabril Peppers, who isn't that tall himself. And I think McKinney's size and length, I think, was a bit better for the Giants rather than Winfield. I believe he's 5'10", if I'm not mistaken. And also, I think, again, McKinney's level of competition, while Minnesota is in the Big Ten, I just think McKinney's played in a lot bigger games over the course of his
I can see that. But then the other problem I have is I think that Peppers, I think we can agree, has the pure ability to play as a box safety and is seemingly kind of gradually becoming more of a box safety himself. And we've seen that McKinney plays the best in the box. So now the Giants, I think, have a rough decision to make because they're going to have to make one of them that center field safety because they really can't put both in the box. So I think the reason that I wouldn't put McKinney as the best pick in the draft is because I think it creates a dilemma for them of who's going to play in the box the most. And I think that now they don't really have the versatility from the safety position that they could have had with Winfield. And I think personally, I think Winfield and Peppers would have been a better combination than McKinney and Peppers just because of the fact that Winfield can be that center field safety and you won't have to take either McKinney or Peppers out of the box and play them, deep as a safety.
Yeah, I mean, the beauty of Xavier McKinney was I was watching him at Alabama. They played him basically everywhere in the secondary. So, I mean, if the Giants want to utilize him in that way, I feel like it's a hit. I think it's a great pick, very high value for the second round. I just went with Patrick Queen because his versatility, elite speed, coverage ability, that's all going to fit in well with the Baltimore defensive line. The Ravens should be able to keep him clean from blockers. They're going to allow him to run from sideline to sideline without much disruption. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if Queen becomes a Pro Bowl player sooner rather than later. He landed in the perfect scheme with a team that can utilize his skill set well. I mean, he was the biggest steal at the end of the first round. Maybe CeeDee Lamb or Jedrick Wills, but I mean, Patrick Queen was a really great value, especially at 28 when I didn't think he'd be there.
Do you think he's going to make immediate impact?
Yes, I do.
See,
how so though?
Yeah.
Like, where do you see that? Because my thing is with Queen going into the Ravens defense, I mean, like, it's hard to find fault with that pick. That's why I think I just wanted to look at the picks through the first 3 rounds. I wanted to find one pick that really stood out to me, just in the way they were, like, at the position they were able to take them. And in that round, I think that's why I went rounds 1, 2, and 3. I found one there rather than going kind of doubling up on a round or staying consistent with the first and second round. But like with Patrick Queen, it's just why I just don't think he would make the same kind of immediate impact as the other picks that we've mentioned. So what are your like? Do you think he would have more of an immediate impact than Jedrick Wills, for example, or even Josh Jones for the Cardinals, who are lackluster at tackle, and like I think I just kind of want to elaborate like how I had Josh Jones going in the first round. I think all three of us did, and this dude somehow managed to fall in the third round right to the Cardinals, who needed a left tackle, and you get, in my opinion, I think he's a top 6 tackle in my opinion in this draft class. And you get him in the third round, and you still got Isaiah Simmons. Like, you found a way to get Isaiah Simmons while also getting a really good tackle. Like, you got, in my opinion, that's similar to what the Dolphins kind of did. Like, they kind of got their star guy, and they found a way to get, a sneaky good player in the latter half of the first round. And I mean, it's hard to Austin Jackson, right, or Josh Jones. It was hard to find fault there, but they got their two guys, right? They got the flashy one in Tua, and they got the solidifier who can make an immediate impact. So tell me, how could Patrick Queen make more of an impact than these other guys? Because I feel like their immediate impact leads to long-term success and long-term stability.
Well, the reason I didn't go with Josh Jones is because, in my opinion, I think he needs to improve as a run blocker. But, I mean, there weren't many tackles that were better in pass protection than Josh Jones. And also another knock I had on him was he didn't always face elite competition. He did perform well at the Senior Bowl, but, I mean, that's kind of something iffy to me that just doesn't solidify having him as the best pick of the draft. But in terms of immediate impact, I mean, the Ravens are going to play Queen right away. He's going to line up right along that defensive line. As I said before, their biggest need was at linebacker. For a team that's becoming more and more complete, I think he's going to have a huge impact. And, I mean, I also said don't be surprised
But what
if he's
way,
a Pro
though?
Bowl.
Pass rush, pass coverage? Like, where do you –
Coverage.
because the Ravens –
coverage for most of it.
Yeah, that's because I believe he is a better linebacker in coverage. But, like, my whole thing is the Ravens have all of that, right? And I think when we give the title best pick of the 2020 draft, right? I think it's like when we look back even last year, right? It's really hard to tell, but like, I mean, we say Kyler because of, I mean, I'd say Kyler just right now, just because of his immediate impact on his team and like what he's able to do. But like, see, again, this is off the top of my head. I'm sure we could come up with better examples, but like, it's just their impact to the team and their value. Like, obviously we can bring up quarterbacks, like, Tua to the Dolphins. Like, yeah, he's probably going to do really well. Like, I mean, or Burrow to the Bengals. Like, hey, he's probably going to become their franchise guy. Like, but I think when we look at these positions, like, for example, offensive tackle, I think I had 2 in there, right, as my honorable mentions. For me, tackles are so valuable. And obviously I wasn't alive at the time, but like Lawrence Taylor, he like invented the need for a left tackle. Like there are still guys out there in the NFL that make you nervous. Like they scare quarterbacks. And offensive line, just like, I mean, as I've kind of done this podcast, it's just offensive line has become so much more important to me. And I think if you're able to get your guy, no matter what round it is, if you're able to get a guy that you can trust on and you can rely on, that allows for so much success in the future. For
it really seems to me like you're convincing yourself that Josh Jones was really the best pick in the draft, not Xavier McKinney, though.
Not real. I mean, I think for value, it's up there. Like in terms of round 3 value, it's up there. But I just think McKinney at that, like for me, I was high on him. I was a lot higher on him than Trevon Diggs because obviously out of that duo, it's kind of like who helped the other more. I think McKinney helped Trevon Diggs a lot more than the other way around. So, and I was really, really shocked that he was slipping this far. And I was like, as I was watching the draft, I was like, there's no, like, I mean, I know the Giants needed a safety. So I was like, the Giants can get him in the second round. Like that's an absolute steal. And I think his immediate impact can be so much greater. And yeah, while you're saying there's a conflicting kind of regime with the box safeties, I just think he can easily learn how to play in coverage a lot more than Jabril Peppers can, already being in the league for 3 years. So he's got a lot of time to kind of develop his game. But Jack, I mean, why do you think Zack Baun's value at round 3 was kind of up there with Patrick Queen's value in round 1?
Well, so my overall best pick was Isaiah Simmons at pick 8.
Yeah.
But I do think that Zach Bond, we all had him go in the first round of our mock drafts. I mean, when he didn't go in the first round, we all thought he might go the first pick of the second round,
Yeah.
or go, pick any of those picks in the second round, and he ends up going mid to late third round to the New Orleans Saints.
That's where I
So
actually had him going. Like, or sorry, I had him going. I had the Saints taking him if Queen was already taken. Like I thought.
yeah,
And the
I
Saints
mean,
were
so
surefire to get
just
him.
being able to get a player we all consistently had in the first round, in the third round, with a team that was needing pass rush on the opposite side of Cameron Jordan, I think that's way more value than Patrick Queen. I wouldn't go as far as say it's as good as my best pick in the draft in Isaiah Simmons, but just to be able to get a player of that caliber with proven production that late, like, I just don't think that you can rival that really, other than with an elite talent at a pick you didn't think was going to be there, which is why I picked Isaiah Simmons in the end. Do you guys have a problem with Simmons though at pick 8 as best pick?
Yeah, I just had a quick question on. So actually, I've consistently, when we talked about Isaiah Simmons, I've consistently brought up Deion Buchanan as kind of like that hybrid guy who could play linebacker and safety. So it's pretty ironic that he played for the Arizona Cardinals, right, in this kind of role. So, I mean, I wouldn't call it a mistake of moving him around like that, but I would say the experiment didn't really work out as much as they had planned to. So my thing is, what do you think they're going to do differently with Isaiah Simmons? Obviously, again, I've addressed this multiple times. Simmons' talent is a lot more. He has a lot more talent and a lot more prowess than Deion Buchanan. But what is a way they can use him differently, and where do you see him kind of lining up more consistently in the NFL?
Well, I think that the Cardinals should really switch to a 4-3 from a 3-4, because I think that Chandler Jones, we can all agree, is good enough to be able to play 3-4 outside linebacker or 4-3 end. And they recently signed Devon Kennard, who I think can play that other end spot. So I think that Simmons, they could play in a 4-3. And I think that he'd work much better in a 4-3, being able to play both inside, outside, and then safety if they need him to, or, maybe nickel back. So I think that switching to a 4-3 would really benefit the Cardinals. It'll be interesting to see what they do, but I think that if they switch to a 4-3, you'll be less likely to see the same thing that happened to Deion Buchanan happen to Simmons. And we previously mentioned, I mean, Simmons is an elite talent, which Deion Buchanan really wasn't coming out of college. He was good. He was a good talent, but he's not as good as Simmons was, and I don't think it's really close. And I've previously mentioned, I think Simmons has the potential to be the best player in this draft class. And when you normally see those guys go at pick 1, 2, or 3, but never really at pick 8. So, and I also think that the fact that the Cardinals are already on an upward trend with Kyler Murray, getting DeAndre Hopkins, and now adding Isaiah Simmons with the possibility to add the best player in the last 2 draft classes, I think that's just a steal and a home run of a pick.
So where do you see the Cardinals this year? Do you think the Simmons pick changed your trajectory of them? Because I after their free agency, I had them going, a solid 8-8, 9-7. I thought that was kind of their average line. I thought that was their kind of flat line of where they would go. So now, does this Isaiah Simmons pick and the Josh Jones pick increase that trajectory any further? Because in my opinion, they're still young. Even DeAndre Hopkins hasn't really done much in the playoffs. So I don't see any veteran leadership there as much. Like Peterson, while he's been to that NFC Championship, it's been a while now. So where do you see this team going?
So I had this team, I think, right around 8-8, just right around 500, finishing third in the division, because I think the Rams will come in last based on just they've had a terrible offseason so far, in my opinion. But the Cardinals, the Simmons pick, it's not going to change my prediction too much for this year. I think I can maybe see them getting second in the division, but it really changes my opinion for next year, because then you're going to have all of these guys one more year in, Kyler and Simmons. You've got your 2 stalwarts on each the offensive and defensive side of the ball getting 1 year older. So I think that next year the Cardinals could really be a threat in this league.
Yeah, my prediction for the NFC West, obviously toughest division in football. I think it goes 49ers, Seahawks at 2, because with Russell Wilson and Pete Carroll, I've never doubted them. Yep. I think they're always just a lock to make the playoffs. And then at 3, I have Arizona. 4, I have LA. I think the Rams have just completely fallen off. They're not using their money wisely. Arizona, I kind of agree with you, Anish. They're still very young. I'm probably not too high on them. I would wait maybe a year or two to call them like contenders. With the Seahawks, of course, Wilson, and then with the Niners, I mean, I will agree they got a little bit worse, but I mean, they drafted in this draft. They drafted replacements. They drafted Kinlaw for Buckner. They drafted Ayuk for Sanders. So I mean, that's kind of how my rankings would shake up as of now. Obviously, there's still more time. We're waiting for the schedule release still. So just depending on all that, that's how I have it.
I think the whole replacement game was kind of weird. Like I was fine with the Kinlaw pick. I think the Ayuk one kind of threw me off a little bit. I think this whole replacement game that teams have been playing throughout these past few years haven't really worked out. Like for example, the Niners at 2, they just took Nick Bosa because best player available, right? I mean, the Niners had a decent line back at that time. They already invested about 3 first-round picks, right? Armstead, Buckner. I'm forgetting the other one, but they had invested.
Solomon Thomas.
Yeah.
No. Yeah, sorry, Solomon Thomas. Exactly. So they've already had 3 first-round picks used on defensive linemen, but a guy like Nick Bosa just available there, right? Like it was hard to pass up on, and you could see his impact, right? Even though it wasn't a position of need, but guess what? The D-line became this whole collective group of guys that really fueled this team to its success. So I thought like I was iffy on what they did there with Ayuk, just because I don't see him replacing Sand. I just don't see how that would work. But like in terms of I think kind of moving on to like the NFC West, I think there's the NFL this year. It's just like I'm so excited because there are so many teams. It just feels like there's kind of an echelon, right? Like there's obviously the contenders. I'm still gonna put San Francisco in there just because that D line is still scary. It's got its main components. They've still got key components on offense and Debo and George Kittle. They've maintained most of their core, right? There's other contenders that we can name. Green Bay kind of took a step back, but I think we can still have them in there. Baltimore, Kansas City, etc. But there's just I'd say a solid 15 teams, maybe even I'd say, yeah, like 12 to 15 teams that could easily step up into that contender echelon or take a huge step back. Obviously, you've got some teams at the bottom that we kind of know where they're going, but I think we can all agree that those 15 teams, I think we can probably name them all, but there's a lot of them, just like, for example, the Cardinals. We could throw in Cleveland in there, LA, right? There are just so many teams that could take a huge step forward or a huge step back, and it really all depends on what they do. But I wanted to kind of talk about my last honorable mention really quick. I know, again, it kind of seems biased, but Jedrick Wills to the Browns at 10. I just thought that the Giants, if they were going tackle, they were going to go Wills. I thought it was a for sure fire bet. You could get a solid right tackle. But now the Browns take him here, and you're going to move him to left. So what are your thoughts on that? Do you think he can still play at a really productive level at left tackle? What do you see for quarterback Baker Mayfield in his third year?
Yeah, I mean, it was no secret that the Browns wanted to upgrade their offensive line. Of course, they signed Jack Conklin for 3 years this offseason, but it still had a gaping hole on the left side. So instead of trading up to ensure that it got the elite tackle it wanted, Cleveland waited patiently and was rewarded. They got Jedrick Wills. I think he was probably the most athletic offense. He was one of the most athletic offensive linemen in the draft. Of course, we had so many. And I think it's not too hard to get behind an SEC blocker with such great tape and elite athleticism. I think Wills, in my opinion, he was the best tackle in the class. And the Browns stole him at number 10. He was a home run selection, instant starter for Cleveland. I'd look for him to slide over to that left side and be a significant upgrade from what the team had at that position last season.
Craig Robinson.
Yeah.
I
mean, the first round as a whole, it couldn't have gone any better for the Browns as they grabbed, as I said, the best tackle in the draft to protect Baker Mayfield.
Yeah, I think that the Browns, I would say that Wills was their second tackle on the board behind Thomas.
Thomas, yep.
Yeah. But the problem is we were hearing talks before the draft that the Browns thought they might not have access to the top 4 tackles at all.
So they would trade back.
So they'd have to trade back maybe for Ezra Cleveland. But the fact that they got presumably their second tackle on the board at pick 10 without having to trade at all, when there was rumor they might not have a chance to take any of the 4, easily makes that one of the best picks in this draft. I just think that Wills being the second tackle and Josh Jones being some people's like sixth tackle, and the difference in the picks that they were drafted with, I would say that Jones was a better pick than Wills at 10 since they were able to get him in the third round.
So okay, I agree. I kind of wanted to go, but like in a direction though. What do you think Wills' impact can be for this, or like even Jones, if you want to compare the two? Like obviously both Oklahoma quarterbacks, Baker and Kyler. I mean, we can talk about Baker's rookie year. We can also talk about his sophomore slump. But I think this third year, there's a lot of quarterbacks here that can.
Yeah.
I mean, again, with these 15 teams, I think all the quarterbacks in those teams can take a huge. Like there are quarterbacks like Josh Allen, who's finally got his number one guy in Stephon Diggs, right? Baker Mayfield, who, while he had targets before, he didn't have a good coach. He didn't have a good GM. He didn't have two tackles. Obviously, he had the most picks that were not essentially his fault, whether it be offensive help that just didn't produce, whether it be drop passes or stuff like that. But there's so many, like Tyrod Taylor, if he's going to.
Sam Darnold. Yeah.
I mean, I mean, in my opinion, he is probably the worst quarterback in his division. Well, now that Tom Brady's gone, third quarterback in his division. But
hey, but you'll finally get to see him with a real left tackle and some more pass catchers. So, you know, I think
there's some upside. See, so again, there's so many quarterbacks that can take that big step, take that big fall. But I think, what do you guys see for, like, let's go with Baker and Sam, right? Those were two guys that we thought it was really close, right? Who were Cleveland going to take with the first pick, and then it was kind of clear that the Jets were going to take the other guy. So what do you guys think for these two quarterbacks? Where do you see them going in year 3?
Well, they finally got coaching. Because I think that Adam Gase, while he had a rough first year, this is the first time.
I was a firm believer in Gase, and I told you, just stay patient.
I wasn't
as patient to the
playoffs the first year, but I think that now this is Darnold's first time in the NFL where he doesn't have to learn an offense over the offseason, because this is Gase's second year. Both of these people now have tackles. I mean, Baker and Sam both have tackles now and a much improved offensive line with the Jets. They both have pass catchers, coaches, running backs. They've got the pieces in place now. They just have to prove themselves, which is why, I mean, we're talking about it. We really want to see the NFL come back this year at the right time, because like you're saying, Anish, there's so many teams that are polarizing, so many players that could have breakout years or go into slumps. I just want to see what happens, because we've been talking about it for so long, and it's finally, I hope that it can come back at the normal
it's approaching time. I mean, it's coming up, but I mean, I think this draft is something that we all needed. Kind of a break from this whole quarantine stuff. I think it kind of brought a little bit of juice back into the sports world, especially with kind of the surprising picks. It's safe to say a lot of teams got better, right? Yeah. At the picks that they made. Obviously, you could see that here with each of our selections. And, I mean, with the NFL season hopefully coming back early September, I mean, sky's the limit for a lot of these teams. And I think the beauty about the NFL is, like, there are players that you might not even have heard of the year before, and they just take a huge step forward and they become a household name. So I'm really excited for that. And I mean, I think this draft was one of those kind of feel good moments that we needed kind of in this time of crisis. And I'm so excited for what we have in store for the NFL.
Yeah, I think it's safe to say that this draft had a ton of good picks. Obviously, we went over a pretty good amount of them, and 3 specific ones we thought were the best in the draft. We're going to go over fully the entire draft, grading each team's draft over the coming weeks. We'll be looking to bring on some more guests. We'd like to know down in the comment section, what do you think was the best pick in the entire NFL draft? And subscribe so you can be notified when we have new videos. But other than that, we'll see you next time. Thank you.